Hey Internet, what's happening? Ready to build my computer tonight? Even got a haircut and shave to look anti-hobo-ish for the build. So let's get right into it. Just a few of the parts we got. I left out the video card because I'm not going to get the video card until a little bit later on, but I got pretty much the rest of the computer here. So the only thing I'm really missing is a monitor, which I don't exactly need. I'm going to be using the TV for now. And the video card I'm missing, and the terabyte or 2 terabyte hard drive I'm missing. I'm just using a solid state drive right now for the operating system. So to start off, we have the case, which is a R4, Define R4 by Fractal Design, with my custom-made Dragon on there that I stole from the Z87-G45 gaming motherboard from MSI. We got the Microsoft Windows 8 operating system, Fractal Design nuts and bolts that came with the case, a EX2 525 watt power supply by Cooler Master, and of course the Intel Core 4670K by Intel, and it's an unlocked processor. Going to be overclocking that guy from its stock speed of 3.4 gigahertz to 4 gigahertz. And of course we got the aftermarket cooler, the Hyper 212 Evo by Cooler Master again. That's going to be needed for the processor overclock. And we got the XMS3 16 gig kit by Corsair. And so yeah, that's going to work nicely with the Intel processor, and it also supports Intel's XMP for overclocking profile. And this is, I forgot the speed on it. I think it was 1600 megahertz. And of course we got the Kingston SSD 120 gigabyte solid state drive there, which is going to contain our operating system. And of course the optical drive, because we still need those apparently. And I just got some random red case lights I think would be really good, because the red will glow through the case and through that Dragon, which should look pretty kick-ass. Let's get started with the build. As with any delicate computer building process, we're going to need some inspiration juice. So we got the juice of choice, Appleton's Estate. I'm a rum fan, so we're gonna have some rum. Alrighty, so the first thing we're gonna unbox, I've already actually unboxed it, but where it's gonna be the motherboard, and it's the Z87G45 Gaming Edition by MSI. So we'll start with what's in the box thing. You get the motherboard, obviously. And what else do you got in here? No surprise jelly beans. You get a case badge, some quick installation guides, the manual, the driver disc, a thing that says you're gaming so you can put it on your door so people don't bug you, and you get two, so my recording device kind of died a little bit, so the other things you get in the box is two SATA cables and the I/O shield, but the I/O shield I've already installed inside the computer case, so that's why it's not here. So now we'll move on to the actual motherboard, take it out of its protectiveness. And here we go. Just a brief overview of this. We have 4 DIMM slots there, total of 32 gigabytes supported RAM. Processor socket, it's a LGA 1150 with the new Haswell, it's the Haswell socket, so it's 1150. So minus 5 pins from the 3rd generation. We have 1, 2, 3 PCI 16s and 1, 2, 3, 4 PCI X1 lanes. And the only other real notable thing on this motherboard, apart from all the other bits and bobs, like it has USB 3.0, a lot of headers, internal headers for USB 3.0, 246 SATA connectors, some RAID support there. You guys can Google the specs. It's the Z87G45 Gaming. This is a build, not a product crazy overview. The one thing I do like about this motherboard, though, it does have support for the mSATA SSD cards. So that's really nice there. And just one thing to note, if you guys have a similar motherboard, that if you're using an an mSATA SSD on the motherboard here, the SATA 1 port on your SATA connectors is actually gets disabled. So, and then I'll just quickly go over the back here, the I/O. We got the PS2 mouse and keyboard support as a kind of a combo thing in there. We got 2 USB 2.0. We got a BIOS reset button there. We got the optical audio as well as a SPDIF. We got DVI here, VGA there. We got gigabit Ethernet over there. And we got 1, 2, 3, 4 USB 3.0 ports, as well as a HDMI port and 7.1 surround sound right there. So that's pretty much all I need to know. So now we're going to actually go ahead and get the processor. So here's the processor, and actually I want to note that this is my first Intel build. All the systems I built before have been AMD based because I was always a cheapskate, but I wanted to spend the extra money and switch to the Intel platform, not just to do it. There are some reasons behind it, and one of those reasons is I want to actually build a Hackintosh in the future, so that's why I chose the Intel platform, and I really liked Intels after using them on the Mac for so long. Alright, so let's unbox this. I've already opened it, so let's open this. Here we have the Intel stock cooling solution. This I won't be using, so I'll just kind of keep it in the box. And there we have the processor itself. As with Intel's processor, they don't have any pins on the back of their processor, as it's an LGA processor. So the pins are actually on the motherboard. It's a reverse from what AMD does. And then, of course, you just get some literature, as well as a sticker for your case, for your computer case. So let's go ahead and install this processor into its home. So, yeah. So we're going to install the i5 processor here. This is actually the first time I installed an Intel processor, so I really don't know what the hell I'm doing. But I did do a little bit of research, aka Googling, and figured out what I should and should be doing, or should and should not be doing. So we're just going to go ahead and lift this retention bar here with some kind of a motion like so. And that will open up that. And I'm going to slip open this cover here. Something like that. And then I'm going to open the processor from its home in here, its temporary home, its mobile home. And I'm going to make sure to grab it by its outer shell here. So there's a couple notches here outlined in the motherboard. And there's also a triangle, so you have to just find the notches and line them up like so. Drop that in there like so. Wiggle it around a little bit. Make sure it's actually seated nice and nice. Take out this little black cover thing, because you don't actually need it. I don't know how that comes off exactly. It says to remove it, so I'm going to remove that. I don't know if I was supposed to remove it before or after. Should just pop out though. There we go. Remove that. Basically, that's just to protect the processor socket if you don't have a processor in there. And we're just going to drop that there. Let it slide into place. Nice firm action going on here. There. Retention bar is in there and its processor seems to be retained. Like a boss. Hey now. So yeah, in the process of doing the computer build, And I need to take a little bit of a break because we gotta eat some pierogies. 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 Right there. Pierogi cow!
Gross! Sick bastard.
Alright, I'm just gonna install the mounting hardware for the aftermarket cooler. And I'm not really sure what I'm doing, so I'm gonna briefly read through the instructions. Like there's a shit ton of instructions. So, the general gist of it is we need this bag of parts here. And one thing I want to mention too, they include these plastic brackets, and what that's for is for mounting on this fan here. Like this comes mounted already with one fan, but you can actually mount a second fan after the fact here with these brackets they include. So you can actually have a sort of a push-pull air setup here. So that's kind of cool. So we're gonna set that aside because we don't actually need that. Here is a key part which we need here. Depending, this setup here depends on which processor socket you're working with. So that's something you guys would have to actually check out. So I'm gonna leave it there for now. And here is a little bit of thermal interface material we get provided by Cooler Master. A lot of people use their own aftermarket stuff, but this should be sufficient for what I'm doing. You get a bag of parts specifically for the Intel LGA 2011 socket. So we're going to set those aside because my socket is not a 2011. And we have 4 of these little standoff dealies. So we definitely need that. Yeah. Okay. So now what I'm going to attempt to do is screw on this, or secure this back plate for the motherboard. So let's see if I could do that. Without screwing anything up. So I'm going to flip the motherboard around onto its backside like a turtle. And I don't know the best way to do this. So I'll flip upside down like that, I guess. And I'm just going to take these nuts here and put them through the holes, being careful not to touch any parts of the motherboard that I shouldn't be touching, which is pretty much touching everything. One thing you should probably do too, that I really forgot to do, was get some kind of ESD protection. Totally forgot that. My bad. Okay, so it looks like these holes are going to line up with the middle of these brackets here, which is a-okay. So I'm gonna flip the board around. I'm gonna do this, and then I'll show you how it looks after I'm done. All right, so I just sort of hand tightened on this back plate here, and Cooler Master provides this little wrench thing. It's like a Phillips screwdriver to wrench or bolt sort of adapter that you could just place on there and then use a screwdriver. So I'm gonna go find a screwdriver because I don't really have one kicking around here. All right, so I got my screwdriver, found it. It was somewhere. All right, so I'm just gonna tighten these. Not really too tight, I don't think. And then kind of tighten them in a crisscross pattern. Seems to be all good in the hood. There was actually some problems in the past. I think that's why these brackets were introduced, because the heatsink cooling solutions that companies are coming up with were actually too big for the actual motherboard, and they're bending the motherboard. So there was some issues there. There, so that looks like it's all tightened up relatively okay. Flip this back around. And looks like those are relatively in place. Now I'm gonna get this crossbar thing. Okay, so I kind of placed it how I think it should go. Okay, I figured out why this bracket wasn't lining up. The screws on here actually move too, so they have to be moved to the middle one to be used with an LGA 1155 or 1150 socket. See, up close here, this pulls over, moves over. Stupid me. I think we're all set. Set that aside. I'm going to find a thermal grease. There's a bunch of controversy over how thermal grease is actually applied, or thermal interface material. Some people like to dab it all over the place. I'm going to do the old blob in the middle. And hopefully it works okay. And that's how you apply poop on a $300 computer part. And for all people out there that don't know what thermal interface material is actually for, it just creates a better thermal bond between the processor and the heatsink. And of course, you have to remove the thing on the bottom of the cooler here. It says remove this. You can't miss it really. Remove that. Now hopefully this works. I'm going to squish this into place. I'm just going to hand tighten the screws again. Shit. I missed one important step of the instructions. Take off the fan. Son of a bitch. And the fan needs to be taken off so you can actually get access to the screws. So, FYI, after the fact. I'm definitely not a pro at this, so this is definitely not a how-to video. This is just a me doing stuff video.
Wasting hundreds and hundreds of dollars of equipment. And I'm gonna break it all.
Oh, shush you. There, so now that the heat sink is on, I'm just gonna put the fan back on. And didn't really align that up properly. The fan just clips into place real easy like. One very important thing to remember to do is plug in the fan connector, or plug the fan, sorry, into the fan header. So we have two options here. There's one is a CPU fan 1, CPU fan 2. I read that on some motherboards, if you don't have the fan plugged in to CPU 1 as a primary fan, the computer actually won't turn on. So we'll go ahead and plug that into CPU fan 1. right over here. And of course we can do like a little bit of cable management here afterwards. Just kind of stash that cable there somewhere. Now that the heat sink and CPU is installed, the easiest thing to do now is to install the RAM. So that's actually making me sweat a little bit installing the CPU. So we're going to go ahead and install the RAM now. Just using this RAM here. So there we go, XMS3 by Corsair. I actually want my RAM to function in dual channel mode. So we got DIMM sockets 1 through 4. So I'm going to install mine in 2 and 4 because they're considered the first sockets here, according to there's like a little diagram here on the bottom of on this motherboard. And pretty straightforward, just line the memory up with the notch on the motherboard. Good to go, easy peasy. Easiest way to do it is push one side in until you hear a click, push the other side in, hear a similar click, and we'll go ahead and install the second stick. Eventually I might have this computer up to 16 gigs, or sorry, 32 gigs of RAM. The computers I've built in the past have always had 8 gigs. I figured that was a pretty good standard, but now times are changing a little bit and we want to have a bit more RAM these days. So same idea, push one side in, click, other side in, click, and there we go, RAM is installed. Starting to get pretty tired here assembling this computer. I took a break to go watch Breaking Bad. Alex and I are trying to get caught up so we could watch the new Breaking Bad. But, alas, we shall continue. So now that we got the processor and the RAM and the cooler on, we're going to take the motherboard now and throw it into the case. So let's go ahead and do that right now. I'm just going to take this whole motherboard and gently lay it inside here. So there we have the motherboard secured into the chassis, and now we can start adding all the other components. So I just went ahead and connected all the jumpers or the connections for the front panel stuff. So we got some USB headers there, we got the power switch, reset switch, and hard drive indicator, as well as audio, front panel audio, as well as front panel USB 3.0 ports. Next, I'm going to install the SSD drive here. Just connected the SSD into an open port over here, slot over here. And of course in the back here I gotta do a little bit of cable management. But I'm just gonna go ahead and open up this front door here and install the optical drive. Optical drive is in, SSD is in, everything's all wired in. And now, of course, the only thing left to install is the power supply, and this is going to require a lot of cable management. And I'm really tired. Alright, system is all together. Got the wires the way I want them, so it's nice and clean in here for maximum airflow. And I tried to tidy up the cables as much as possible on this side. But I think for now, this is just how they're going to stay. At least they're out of the way. And not in the front. So it's time for first boot.